Good Software Architecture by Uncle Bob. I'm Chris Tanis. I'm a KMP developer. Tech support said they're coming out Tuesday. They really mean it this time. I'm in Mexico, so you might hear some fireworks in the background. All right. Good. So we got Uncle Bob coming up next on DevTools Made Simple. They go give them a like and subscribe. They're doing great work over there. He's going to tell us what a good software architecture is from NDC 2012 Norwegian Developers Conference. He's on the conference circuit, guys.
The idea behind our architecture is that a good architect tells you what it's for, not.
Well, I mean, yeah. People were not telling you what the software is for. This was a thing, Uncle Bob. People just like, oh, here's the requirements of things. Don't worry. Don't ask questions about what it's for. This is behind the wall of you should not ask. Do not ask what it's for. Just look at the requirements and write the code.
What it's made out of. Many.
What it's for, not what it's made out of. You mean so you should tell. So before this, they weren't telling you what it's for. It could be a banking application. It could be weapons delivery platform. It could be satellite tracker. It could be an Amazon store. We don't have no idea. Don't ask that. Before that was okay. Let's keep going. Oh, I'm just being silly. Let's keep going on.
Many of us, if asked, what is the architecture of your system? We would say something like Spring, Hibernate, Tomcat.
That's the implementation of the architecture. That's not your architecture. That's the implementation of your architecture. Your architecture is this conceptual layer above that. That these are the implementation details of one particular the one particular ones you chose. But that's not really your architecture. But that's how people talk about it. But really, the architecture, what people ask about, like, what are the components of your system? You know, your ingest, message ingest, your inventory, your sales accounting, your PSYOPs division, your radar tracker system, your database of incoming missiles.
A lot of dependency injection. Or we might say, oh, well, it's based on .NET with an ADO backend, and we're doing a lot of link view model thing that we're doing. Yeah, but that's not an architecture. That's a set of tools. The phrase.
Okay, implementation. Okay, so Uncle Bob agrees with me. So me and Uncle Bob are meeting of the minds. So I find myself, and I'm just kind of shocked that I'm actually agreeing with Uncle Bob here.
The frameworks you're using, the technology you're using are a bunch of tools. They're not an architecture. An architecture tells you what the application is for.
Right, yeah. I mean, well, it tells you the problem space, the solution space for what we consider the problem that a customer is willing to pay for. So that's the solution space of the problem solution combination thing.
If I were to
that's what the business is for, what we're trying to do, who we're trying to help, why. It's all that stuff. And the system we decided to create the value for our customers, that they can get value out of our system using it as opposed to the way they're doing it now, or some other way, or not able to do it now. Let's keep going.
Show you the blueprints of this building. You would look at those blueprints and you'd say, well, that's some kind of sports arena or convention center or something. You could see where all the bleachers were. You could see that big open area out there. You could see the area around the outside. And you would go, that's some kind of arena. You would not say, looks like they used hammers and saws and bricks. You would know exactly what that building was for. The architecture of your system.
I mean, but when you're talking to the developers, and usually in some niche, if they're going to some conference, the Norwegian Developers Conference, there's usually some draw there of some certain types of developers who are going to have common idioms. And when they're usually what they're asking of a professional developer to another professional, they're asking, how did you address this issue of XYZ? And is there a tool they did? Did they roll their own? Did they do their own thing? Like, did they find some open source stuff? Did they do some hybrid something? Did they take something from open source and modify it on their own to solve some system problem that they might have in common together? Maybe they're all Amazon developers, and they need to know how they can figure out their ingest for some some Internet of Things device. I don't know. There's all kinds of things you can talk about. So yeah, so usually that's sometimes there. So it depends on the audience, right? Who you're talking to. If it's just a business guy, they want to know like high level details, boxes, lines. We take stuff in here, we put stuff over there, and they can log in here, and we got different types of users, different tiers of things we can do, and they get access to that. That's all that stuff.
Should scream at you. I am an accounting application. I am a trading application. I am a shipping application.
I mean, I guess there was a time when before domain driven development was even a concept of where people tried to genericize these applications, or they didn't ever think because the teams were usually in these businesses that were trying to create the applications for the business. They'd have their software developers in that business, so the domain was kind of implied. And there was also this job security thing by obfuscated, and also people not fully understanding how all these things are put together. Not like we have today, or have the internet and YouTube and explain all this stuff in detail. A lot of stuff was in manuals and written down or at conferences, and you had to be already in the know to be even invited to know these things, to even be to talk about these things. So there's a lot of this tacit knowledge, just a tremendous amount of tacit knowledge. So I think that's what he was talking about, an age when the tacit knowledge was key, and there was a lot of assumptions that were made. And when we transitioned over to this like more generalized computing, where we could separate out developers and businesses, and developers could write software for more than one business, right? So that became a thing, and then we needed to get into the mode of delivering stuff for just certain types of customers, and that's when they just more specialized, and that's when even then you would be the specialization company. There'd be a lot of tacit knowledge that would be implied of how we build stuff, how we do stuff. So I guess he's talking about more like this trend of domain driven, where you're in the code, you're being very explicit about these domain objects here.
The architecture should yell at you.
I don't know what that means. Yell? Saying the IDE should have my speaker thing turned on, my speech to text to speech, and goes, "I'm an architecture, god damn it." Uncle Bob said I should scream. It's like, no, is that what you mean, Uncle Bob? It should yell at you. It's like, because we can make that happen. Is that gonna make my software architecture good? Is where the IDE screams at me? Architecture.
It's for the first time you open up those directories, you should look at that and go, "Oh yeah, this is some kind of some accounting application. Look, there's transactions."
I mean, you should know before, like with the GitHub README, that's an accounting application. Like, come on, man.
There's ledgers, there's credits, there's debit.
I mean, sometimes you can have that, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes some of the best applications don't have any of that stuff, and some of them do. It just really depends on who's your end user, who's the end customer. Are you going to be supporting this database? Can you get away with doing something weird that's like may not make sense, or do you have to make it so I'm going to make this thing extendable, updatable, understandable, maintainable, monitorable, debuggable, all that stuff? Is that part of it? Are you trying to do this for the public, or are you just doing your own little thing? It's like he's so broad with his descriptions, but this is 2012. This is like what 14 years ago, 13 years ago. Let's keep going.
This is an accounting application. You shouldn't have to hunt for that. What should you have to hunt for?
I mean, I have been in some of these code bases where people thought they had to abstract this stuff out, or they could make it super generic in some way. It's like, this is not helping you guys. This is not helping. You're not obfuscating it. They're just making it more confusing. So I guess that message got through at some point.
You should have to hunt for the fact that it's delivered over the web. The initial architecture should not say, "I am a web application." That's a detail. The fact that it's a web application is some nasty little detail.
What? No, because they usually have to deploy it on something. The source code is there to deploy that thing on that device or that system or that. Uncle Bob, what are you talking about, man? Yeah, we're going to make a system that's generic and then plug in the implementation underneath. No, the implementation is going to be right there next to it. Like, you're not going to get away with doing a generic general purpose program that's not hooked into anything specific, that's going to have its own little quirks and weird little things and gotchas, and oh, you forgot about that, and we got a new thing, you put it in there, and you got to backtrack it. It's going to go change all the systems, all that stuff.
I don't want to know that it's a web application. You can tell me about that later. I'll hunt for how the damn system is delivered. I don't want to know web. I want to know that.
Come on, man. Are you serious? Even in 2012, people knew where they're going to deploy their stuff. So what is he talking about here? Let's.
It's an accounting system. I don't want to know what database you're using. I don't want to know that there is a database.
I mean, you kind of do are you a developer, Bob? Because as a developer, I kind of need to know there's a database, and I kind of want to know where it is and which one. Have you ever had to maintain a database without knowing how the stuff works? It doesn't work that way, Bob.
The database is a detail. Get it out of my way. I want to know what this system does.
I mean, that's one part of it too. That's the other part that is important. You can't get away from it. You can't just like get over that details. Like it's all details, buddy.
Do you know what the goal of a good architecture is, other than to announce to the world the purpose of the
Announce to the world? You mean announce to the developers who have to maintain it, read it, understand it, and extend it? To the world. I gotta announce to the world. You mean we gotta get an RSS feed now in our IDE to announce to the world? This guy he's kind of funny, man. I like to rag at him because he says stuff that's just like gish galloping and vague and hypnotic induction. He's trying to get people to buy his book and get him back to the conference next year in 2012, 2014. Let's go.
of the application. The goal of a good architecture, the goal of a good architect, is to delay as many decisions as possible.
Huh? Wait. I have heard this phrase before and I wonder where it came from. And now I know it came from this guy. To delay as many decisions as possible. I don't know about you, man, but we got timetables to hit. I don't know about you, but these unlimited budgets that you can just go on and delay things forever. Now, if you're saying you're making things like that could be changed, like that we're not sure of to be easily changeable at some point, I mean, yeah, but like how do you predict that stuff? I mean, that comes from experience, I guess. But some of the stuff you just can't predict. You have to do version 2, man. You just do your best stab at it. We got 2 weeks, got 3 weeks, got a month, got 2 months. Delay as many decisions as possible. You mean implementation detail decisions? So you get your system ideas of how you're going to approach the problem space for your users, and that they will appreciate the solution. They have the solution to the problem, or at least pieces of it, or whatever for your customers. How do you delay? You can't delay that stuff. So you're saying the implementation, like how you're gonna put what the screens are and all that stuff. I mean, you kind of gotta know what you're gonna be doing before you do implement the screen. But you're not gonna know off the bat if the screen's gonna be right or not until the user sees it some one way or another. I don't know. You can't get around this stuff. It's iterative. It's evolutionary. It takes time, and there's no guarantees.
Defer decisions about frameworks and databases, web servers, and all those frameworks you're going to use. Defer those decisions. Get them out of the way. Make them late.
I mean, maybe in 2012 you could just delay all this stuff and just do this high float in the air, just generalized architecture thing and present that and get away with that. But I'm calling from 2025, and you got to know which technology you're going to be going with, which database, which back end, kind of which service provider you're going to be used, kind of at the beginning, man, because you're going to see if it's even worth even predicting with this thing, and if it's going to be too expensive to even build it, or how big the thing is, and which service you're going to let it deploy on. You're going to self-host it. You're going to let Android send it off, or Google send it off, or the Apple. Which store are you going to use? Are you going to get, is this stuff that you can get banned in or not? Like all that stuff. It's like, just defer it till ever. It's like, no, you can't think. It's right up front, man.
The later you make a decision, the more information you have about how good that decision is.
Now, there might be pieces of it. It's like, God, this might change. This might be different. It's like, okay, yeah, put a little interface around that. But the rest of it, we got to get this thing to market, man, and get to see it in front of people. We don't have time to dick around forever, and this is how things are going to start failing in the future, because with these AI tools, it allows much more nimble teams, much more smaller teams to attack these spaces and go into a niche and deliver value in a timely manner.
One of the big mistakes we make as software developers is we make a whole raft of decisions far too early. We say, oh gosh,
depends on who are we? Are we big IBM people that we're gonna fill in the slots later? It'll be 6 to 9 months before we even start to hire developers for this thing. Do you have the ability to do that? Because that's kind of like the old-fashioned kind of like waterfall, ding, 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 ding. The current style seems to be like where all these apps and stuff that we see came from was more adventure driven. So It's more of a adventure-driven development, not this top down. We're gonna get the approval by the architecture committee. It's like no.
Uh, hmm, we've got to have a database. What database? Well, if this is .NET, we don't have a lot of choice, do we?
Well, I have to tell you that these decisions do dictate your application, how your and your solution space, pretty directly. So let's keep going.
Well, we'll use one, and we've got to have a framework. And we
Yeah, if you want to deploy where your users are at, where you found your customers, you're gonna have to use somebody's framework. Unless you're gonna roll your own. I mean, what are you talking about, man?
we've got to have a language, and we got to have all these
Yeah, if a framework is gonna have a language, this is silly.
things, and we make all those decisions, and then we start to write the code.
Okay.
Hey, you got to pick your language early.
I mean, where you're deploying it. I mean, I don't even know if that's not even the most important stuff, man. The most important stuff, Bob, is finding customers who will buy your stuff that you can profitably create solutions for that they want to use and will pay you money for. That's the most important thing. That's not the language that shows the platform. It's like I'll learn a language. If I found a customer and there's some language that they want to think, and I've found something that I can profitably create a solution for, I'm gonna learn the stupid language. What? I gotta learn the language. It's like, yeah, but like, just for purpose. That's why I like KMP, man. I got one language for the back end, the front end, for the web, for desktop, for iOS, for the Android. I got 95% of my application in Kotlin. I'm not to learn just a little bit of the edge stuff for each one of these platforms, which the AI is super helpful. It's like, hell yeah, that's what I'm gonna use, man. So I've already decided my architecture before I even got started because I'm not going to do anything without probably doing that because I'd be kicking myself in the shins. Like, why do I do that when I have this other thing over here that I've already looked down the tunnel for and like, oh, yep, that's the thing to use. Like, it's going to cover all my bases. All right. Give me a like and subscribe. I'll talk to you later.